I found my wife's first wedding dress hidden in our attic after 43 years of marriage, and it wasn't mine she wore when she said yes to another man. Well, hello there, my dear friends. Welcome back to After Her Lies. I'm Harold, and if you're new here, well, you've stumbled onto something pretty special today. Before I dive into this story that's been weighing on my heart, I need to ask you something. I see the numbers, folks. 96% of you watching right now aren't subscribed to this channel, and that just breaks this old man's heart a little bit. It really does. All I'm asking is that you hit that subscribe button down there. It's free. Takes half a second, and it helps me keep sharing these stories with all of you beautiful people. Now today, I'm going to tell you about Margaret. My sweet Margaret. And Lord knows this isn't easy for me to talk about, but I figure at 72 years old, maybe it's time I get this off my chest. So please, settle in. Maybe grab yourself a cup of coffee like I've got here, and let me tell you about the most complicated love story I've ever lived through. It was 1978, and I was working construction in a little town outside of Phoenix, Arizona. Hot as blazes that summer, I tell you what. I was 26 then. Thought I knew everything about life, about love, about what it meant to be a man. Boy, was I wrong about that last part. I first saw Margaret at Donnie's Diner on Route 60. She was waiting tables there, had this smile that could light up the whole desert. Auburn hair that caught the sunlight just so, and these green eyes that seemed to see right through all the nonsense and straight into your soul. I was smitten from day one, no doubt about it. But here's the thing, and this is where the story gets complicated, friends. Margaret was already engaged to a fellow named Robert Patterson. Bobby, everyone called him. He worked at the bank in town, wore nice suits, drove a brand new Buick. Everything I wasn't. I was just a guy with calloused hands and dirt under his fingernails, showing up to that diner every morning before work, ordering the same coffee and eggs, just hoping to catch a glimpse of her smile. For 3 months, that's all it was. Good morning, Margaret. Good morning, Harold. How you doing today? Oh, just fine, thank you for asking. Real surface-level stuff, you understand. But there was something there, some kind of electricity between us that neither of us wanted to acknowledge. Then came September 15th, 1978. I remember the date because it changed everything. Margaret's shift was ending just as I was getting off work, and I saw her walking home along the main road. Her car was in the shop, she'd mentioned earlier. Now, I'd been raised right by my mama, God rest her soul, so I pulled over in my beat-up Ford truck. Margaret, you need a ride home. She looked at that truck, then at me, and I saw something flicker across her face. Something like longing, maybe, or fear. Could have been both. I suppose that would be all right, Harold. Just this once. Just this once. If only we'd kept it to just that once. The drive to her little apartment should have taken maybe 8 minutes. We drove around for 2 hours. We talked about everything and nothing. Her dreams of maybe teaching school someday. My plans to start my own construction business. The way the sunset looked over the mountains. Before I knew it, we were parked by Miller's Pond, and she was crying. I can't do this, Harold. Can't do what, Margaret? This. Us. Whatever this is, I'm getting married in 3 weeks. And that's when she told me the truth. She didn't love Bobby. Never had. Not really. Her daddy owed Bobby's daddy some money, a gambling debt from way back, and this engagement was as much business as it was anything else. She was 22 years old and felt trapped in a life that wasn't hers to choose. I should have driven her home right then, should have wished her well, and walked away like any decent man would have. Instead, I reached over and took her hand. What if you didn't have to marry him? Oh, Harold, if only it were that simple. But for the next 3 weeks, we pretended it could be that simple. Every evening after work, I'd find some excuse to drive by her place. She'd be waiting on the porch, and we'd drive out to the pond. We talked about running away together, starting fresh somewhere nobody knew our names. California, maybe. Or up north to Colorado. We fell in love the way people do in movies, friends, complete and total and absolutely foolish. I was ready to give up everything for this woman. My job, my family, my whole life in Arizona. And she felt the same way about me. I know she did. The night before her wedding, we met one last time. We had it all planned out. I had my savings, about $800, which wasn't much, but it was enough to get us started somewhere new. She was going to leave Bobby a letter explaining everything, and we'd drive through the night to California. I love you, Harold Jenkins. I love you too, Margaret Collins. More than I ever thought possible. We were supposed to meet at sunrise. I packed everything I owned into 2 duffel bags, loaded up my truck, and drove out to our spot by the pond. I waited there for 4 hours, friends. 4 of the longest hours of my life. The sun came up, then climbed higher, then started getting hot, and she never came. I found out later what happened from her neighbor, Mrs. Chen. Bobby had shown up at Margaret's apartment around midnight, drunk and suspicious. He'd heard rumors around town about her and some construction worker. There was a fight. Margaret ended up with a black eye and a split lip, and Bobby threatened to hurt her family if she didn't go through with the wedding. So she did. She married him that afternoon in a small ceremony at St. Mary's Catholic Church. I wasn't there, of course, but I heard about it. Heard she wore her grandmother's wedding dress and cried through the whole ceremony. Everyone figured they were happy tears. I left town that same day. Couldn't bear to stick around and watch her live a life she didn't choose. Ended up in Colorado, just like we'd talked about. Worked construction there for 5 years. Tried my best to forget about Margaret Patterson and move on with my life. But you don't forget love like that, do you? It stays with you, lives in your bones, comes back to you at the strangest moments. The smell of coffee in the morning, the way sunlight hits auburn hair, the sound of a woman laughing in another room. I met my dear wife Susan in 1983. Good woman, wonderful mother to our 2 boys. We had a fine life together, 38 years before she passed. I loved Susan, I want to be clear about that. But it was a different kind of love, steady and comfortable and built on friendship and respect. Not that wild, desperate kind of love I'd felt for Margaret. Susan knew about Margaret, actually. I told her the whole story early in our relationship because I didn't want to start a marriage with secrets. She understood, bless her heart. Even said once that she hoped wherever Margaret was, she'd found some happiness. Now here's where the story takes another turn. Friends, And this is the part that still gives me chills when I think about it. 3 months ago, I'm cleaning out Susan's things from the attic. We'd been married 43 years, and Lord knows that woman kept everything. I'm going through old photo albums and Christmas decorations when I find this garment bag way in the back corner. Not one of Susan's, I can tell right away. Different style, older. I open it up, and inside is the most beautiful wedding dress I've ever seen. Ivory silk with tiny pearl buttons and delicate lace along the sleeves. Hand-sewn, clearly vintage. There's a note pinned to it in Susan's handwriting. For Harold, from Margaret. She wanted you to have this. She never forgot. My hands are shaking as I read this. Friends. I call my son Michael, Susan's executor, and ask him what he knows about this dress. Turns out, about 2 years before Susan passed, she got a package in the mail from Phoenix. No return address, but the postmark was clear. Inside was this wedding dress and a longer letter that Susan never showed me. Michael still had the letter. He brought it over that same day, and with his permission, I'm going to read you part of it now. Dear Susan, I hope you'll forgive a stranger writing to you like this. My name is Margaret, and I believe your husband once knew me a very long time ago. I'm dying, Susan. Pancreatic cancer, and the doctors say I have maybe 6 months left. I never forgot Harold, and I hope that doesn't hurt you to read. I've had a good life, raised 3 beautiful children, found my own version of happiness. But there's something I need him to know, something I should have told him 45 years ago. The morning I was supposed to meet him at Miller's Pond, I didn't choose Bobby over him. Bobby showed up at my apartment and threatened to hurt my little sister if I ran away. She was only 16 then, still living at home with my parents. He said he'd make sure she never felt safe in our town again. I couldn't risk that, Harold. I couldn't let her pay for my choices. I married Bobby wearing my grandmother's dress. But in my heart, I was wearing the dress I'd bought for Harold. I never told anyone about that dress, never even took it out of the box. It's been in my closet for 45 years, waiting for the right time. I'm sending it to you because I think Harold should know that I chose him in every way that mattered. I chose him every morning when I woke up next to a man I didn't love. I chose him every time I looked at my children and wondered what our children might have looked like. I chose him every time I heard his name, or saw a Ford truck, or smelled coffee at a diner. Tell him I'm sorry it took me so long to explain. Tell him I loved him until the very end, and tell him that I hope you gave him the kind of love he deserved, because he was the best man I ever knew. The dress is for him, not for wearing, of course, but as proof. Proof that sometimes love is about the choices we make in our hearts, even when we can't make them in the world. With respect and gratitude, Margaret Patterson, I'm not ashamed to tell you I cried reading that letter, friends. Cried like a baby. At 72 years old, sitting in my kitchen with my son's arm around my shoulders, I cried for Margaret, and for Bobby, and for Susan, and for all the complicated ways we try to love each other in this world. Michael helped me do some research, and we found Margaret's obituary from 2020. She'd been a teacher, just like she'd dreamed. Taught 3rd grade for 30 years in a little school outside Phoenix. She had 3 children with Bobby, 6 grandchildren. By all accounts, she'd made the best of the life she'd chosen. Bobby had died in 1995, and according to the obituary, Margaret never remarried. Spent her last 25 years as a widow, volunteering at the local animal shelter and teaching literacy classes at the community center. I don't know why I'm sharing this story with all of you today. Maybe because I'm getting older and these kinds of secrets feel too heavy to carry alone. Maybe because I want you to understand that love isn't always about getting what you want. Sometimes, love is about protecting the people who matter to you, even when it costs you everything. Margaret made the right choice that morning in 1978. I know that now. She saved her sister, and probably saved me too. If I'm being honest, chasing after someone else's fiancé at 26 years old wasn't exactly my finest moment. But knowing that she loved me, really loved me, that she thought about me all those years and kept that dress as proof. Well, that means more to me than I can put into words. That dress is hanging in my closet now, next to Susan's wedding dress. Two women, two very different kinds of love, both part of who I am today. So that's my story, friends. Not exactly the happily ever after you see in movies, but real life rarely is. Sometimes love is about the choices we make for other people. Sometimes it's about the secrets we keep to protect the ones we care about. And sometimes, if we're very lucky, it's about finding someone who understands all of that and loves us anyway. Now, before I let you go, I need to ask for a couple of favors. First, please hit that like button if this story touched your heart in any way. And second, leave me a comment down below. Tell me about a time when love surprised you, or when you had to make a difficult choice for someone else's sake. I read every single comment, and your stories mean the world to this old man. And please, please subscribe to After Her Lies. Remember, 96% of you aren't subscribed yet, and sharing these stories with you is what keeps me going these days. It doesn't cost you anything, but it means everything to me. Until next time, friends, take care of each other out there. Love is complicated enough without us making it harder than it has to be. This is Harold, signing off. I'll see you in the next video.